The hot streak continues for Notre Dame recruiting as the Irish added 2 four-star commitments in their class of 2024 in as many days, and there might be more on the way soon.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, and welcome to Locked On Irish. It is Wednesday, June 7th, and thank you for making this your first listen of the day. This show is free and available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, so whether you're watching or listening, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button if you have not already. My name is Tyler Wojciak, and I'm the host. I'm a Notre Dame alum and have been podcasting about the football team since 2020. I've also been covering college football as a producer since 2018, first for ESPN and now at the Fox Sports headquarters in Los Angeles. And today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege, and when you enter promo code LockedOnCollege, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. We've got a lot to get into today. I've seen the disrespect that's been put out there towards Sam Hartman from some national college football pundits that I'm sure Notre Dame fans are going to recognize for all the wrong reasons. And I don't normally like giving attention to what these guys put out, especially when it involves Notre Dame, because way more often than not, I think they're just doing it to generate a reaction and generate engagement online. But this one felt different, and I'll explain why in segment 3, so stick around for that. But more importantly, however, the Irish picked up a pair of verbal commitments in the class of 2024 over the past couple of days, and that's where I want to start with today's episode. So, four-star running back Kedren Young, he announced his commitment late on Monday night, and then tackle Styles Prescod followed suit the very next day when he tweeted out his commitment on Tuesday afternoon. And if you listened to yesterday's episode, you certainly had a sense that this is where I thought things were trending. I felt very confident that both of those players would end up committing to Notre Dame, and I thought they'd be doing it soon. But I have to say that Young surprised me with his announcement because, I'll just give you a little peek behind the curtain. So usually when I record these episodes, I do it the night before. Once I get done with my day job, then I come home and start prep for this job, and usually I have a good idea of what I'm going to be talking about on the show for the next day's episode. So I knew I was going to be recapping the previous recruiting weekend for Notre Dame, and I received some good insight about the status of Young, Prescod, and some of the other guys I mentioned. I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about them, put them on commitment watch, and we'll see where that goes. So I record a full episode. I'm feeling pretty good about it, and then as soon as I'm done, I realize I forgot to hit record. It's like the cardinal sin in this job. If you do this for a living, forgetting to press record is literally the most deflating thing in the world, and I really think I've only done it one other time in any of my jobs or any of the podcasts I've ever done where I did something and I was like, holy shit, I forgot to hit that red button. Well, it happened again yesterday, and then I recorded another episode, the same thing. I did it all over again, and finally, I'm pretty exhausted by this point. So I finished getting the show up, and I unplugged for a little bit, and I'm thinking, you know what? It's pretty late on the East Coast. I'm not going to hear anything. And then right before I went to bed, I looked at my phone, and guess what? Kedren Young had made his commitment, and I was like, oh no, now this episode for the next day is going to be dated. I'm going to be talking about this guy who might commit when he actually already has, so I apologize to everyone who listened to yesterday's episode and had to listen to that. Now I'm back, and now I can talk about Young and Prescod actually in the class of 2024. So let's start there. Let's revisit their player profiles. So Young is the slightly higher rated prospect between the two, between him and Prescod. He's the 14th running back in the class of 2024, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. He's the number 207 player nationally, and I feel really good about this commitment for Notre Dame. It basically completes their running back group in the class of 2024. They've had Aeneas Williams committed for a while now. He's another four-star running back who I really like. And now with these two players with complementary skill sets, Notre Dame is really in a great position in this class. And running backs coach Deal McCullough can start working on the prospects in the class of 2025 and get a head start on that. So that's great. Notre Dame is in a really great position there. Adding Styles Prescod was also very important because it came at a position of need. I've talked many times on this podcast about how as good as it is right now for Notre Dame at the tackle position on the actual team with Joe Alt and Blake Fisher, those guys are likely going to be gone very soon. So getting as many talented guys behind them at the tackle position is extremely important for really every single year for Notre Dame, because we all know how important the offensive line is to the success and failures of the Notre Dame football team. So Styles is the first tackle commit, the first true tackle in this class to commit to Notre Dame. I know that Anthony Knapp has been thrown around as a potential tackle or an interior offensive lineman. I think he projects to be more of an interior offensive lineman once he gets to Notre Dame. So this is very important for Notre Dame to get at least one tackle on board over the summer before the season starts. They obviously had Gerby Lambert in town over the weekend as well. And even though things have gone really well with him, I don't think we're going to be getting a commitment from him anytime soon. Although I don't really know. I can't say that with any certainty because the way he goes about his recruitment, everything is kept very quiet. So maybe I'm going to finish recording this and then Gerby Lambert will have committed to Notre Dame. And as frustrating as that might be in the moment for me personally, because I'd be dated again, obviously that'd be a great thing for Notre Dame. And I think it really speaks to what this coaching staff was able to accomplish after the first recruiting weekend. That's my main takeaway here, because this is a really impressive. The fact that they were able to get Styles, Prescod, and Kedren Young to commit in less than 48 hours after their official visits ended, it does lead you to believe that they probably did commit on the actual visit, but now it's public, now it's out there, now we all know about it, and this is big. Notre Dame also had Paul Menke and Bronte Johnson in town this weekend as well, and we might be hearing from them pretty soon. I'm not sure who it's going to be from or what. We know that situation is a little bit unique. I know that people think that or thought that Menke might have already committed, but now he might want to take another official visit to Duke. Kyle Kelly, friend of the program, recruiting insider for blueandgold.com, had a conversation with Menke and suggested, and he reported, rather, that Menke is looking to take an official visit to Duke soon. So we'll probably hear back from Menke about where Notre Dame stands with his commitment, or his recruitment pretty soon here. And then you got Bronte Johnson, the Indiana kid who Notre Dame has really made a lot of progress with lately. So that's great. Like I said in yesterday's episode, during this time of year, all the top teams in the country, they're getting commitments from their top guys. It's just that time of year. The best teams know how to put on a show for these recruits. They know how to really impress them once they get on campus, and that goes a long way in securing commitments. So you're seeing a lot of big-time programs get these commitments, and Notre Dame has to keep up with them. And right now, they're doing more than just keeping up. They're setting the tone right now, because if they get a commitment from Bronte Johnson and Paul Menke, they've already got 2, which means they would get commitments from 4 out of the 5 uncommitted prospects in just their first weekend of June. And I've said before about how important this month is, and it's going to be very important for the entire Notre Dame class of 2024 and beyond, really. But that was just weekend 1, okay? So coming up next, I'll tell you why this upcoming weekend could actually be the most important of any in determining where Notre Dame's class of 2024 will finish up in the final team rankings. This episode of Locked On Irish is brought to you by Bird Dogs. I've raved about Bird Dogs shorts before in the podcast, and I'm here to do it again because they're just that good. Not only do they make you look better, they're way more comfortable than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. So not only can you wear these shorts to the gym, but you could wear them on the golf course, out to lunch, really wherever you want. Plus, when you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code LockedOnCollege, they'll even throw in a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler. Get to birddogs.com ASAP, get yourself some new shorts and a nice tumbler to go along with them. And once your shorts arrive, you will not want to take them off, we promise you. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. Now let's take a look at the 19 commitments in Notre Dame's class of 2024 and figure out where things go from here. Right now, Notre Dame is ranked as the 3rd class in the 2024 composite rankings according to 24/7 Sports. And a big reason why is because they have the most commitments of any team in the country. They have 19 players committed at the time of this recording, and that goes a long way. And I think that for as much as we've talked, especially on this podcast, like I'm guilty of it as well, as much as I've talked about the concerns about the state of Notre Dame's recruiting on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's time we need to appreciate what Notre Dame has done on offense in this class, because it is really, really impressive. If you look at it, they've got 1 5-star and 9 4-stars on the offensive side of the ball. And in the past, we've talked a lot about how offensive recruiting has been the problem, but that has not been the case, especially with this class. They're led by 5-star wide receiver Cam Williams. He's the number 28 player nationally and the number 7 wide receiver in this class. And then obviously CJ Carr, the 4-star, close to 5-star quarterback. He's the number 5 rated quarterback in this class. And that's a really strong duo to sort of lead the pack here. And now with Young on board and with Prescod on board, they're looking really good on the offensive side of the ball. And if you look at it positionally, they're set at quarterback. They're set at running back now. At wide receiver, they have 3 guys committed in Williams. They also have Micah Gilbert and then Isaiah Canyon. So they're pretty good right there with 3 guys, but they could add another. They could add a 4th. They had 4 receivers committed in last year's class. So I don't know if they're going to add another this year, but we'll have to see. At tight end, they've already got Jack Larson committed. He's a 4-star, albeit outside of the top 300. But a solid tight end prospect, but it does look like Notre Dame is looking to add one more. They swung and missed on Jane Riddell, the tight end, the number one tight end in this class, who's also a teammate on CJ Carr's 7-on-7 team. He committed to Georgia, so breaking news, another 5-star prospect committed to Georgia. So Notre Dame wasn't able to land him, but they're going after another highly rated tight end in Carter Nelson, who will be on campus this weekend. He is the only uncommitted prospect who's on offense that will be visiting Notre Dame this weekend. More on that in a bit. So they got some work to do at tight end. And then if you look at the offensive line, it looks like they're probably trying to add 4 offensive linemen total in this class, 2 tackles, and then 2 interior linemen. And they've already got the 2 interior guys on board, and Anthony Knapp and Peter Jones. And now you add Styles Prescod into the mix, and now they have that tackle position. They're halfway home, right? They still need one more guy. Right now, they're putting a lot of attention on Gerby Lambert. As I was saying earlier, he had a really positive official visit to Notre Dame this past weekend. It's one of only 2 visits he's had so far. But Ohio State is certainly in the running there. Penn State is as well. And we really don't have a ton of information on Gerby Lambert. Maybe that's a good thing. So they've got a little bit of work to do left. They need that tackle spot. They need that tight end. And they could maybe get one more wide receiver. But honestly, I just want to give a big shout out to Notre Dame's offensive staff for the work that they've been able to do with this recruiting class, because it is really strong. If you look at the top players in the class, their top 2 are on offense, and then Young and Aeneas Williams are right behind Logan Thomas right there in the recruiting rankings, and then Peter Jones and Mikey Gilbert and Styles Prescod and Isaiah Canyon. And then you got Jack Larson. So really, you go through it, most of the top recruits in this class are on offense. Now, that is a good thing for the offense, but it does lead to the concerns that we've talked about plenty on this podcast before about the concerns with the defense. In this upcoming weekend, it's just massive. I don't really think there's a way. I don't want to short sell it. It is a very, very important weekend for Notre Dame, and a big reason why is a guy I don't know if you've heard of. His name is Elijah Rushing. He's a 5-star defensive end out of Arizona who will be taking his official visit to Notre Dame this weekend, and that's a huge one, right? Notre Dame, I think, even though that some people think that Rushing might be leaning towards Notre Dame right now, they really have to knock this weekend out of the park with him. And they also have a couple other defensive prospects coming into town this weekend, including Bradley Shaw, the linebacker, and then safety Oliver Miles. So what Notre Dame does this weekend with Elijah Rushing is going to go a long way in determining how we look at this class. Because as I mentioned, the offense, it looks great right now, but the defense, they got to pick up the slack a little bit in terms of the recruiting rankings and the caliber of guys that they're bringing in. Justin Scott, he said after his official visit to Georgia that Georgia is now tied with Notre Dame and Miami. He did explicitly say Notre Dame, but he said that Georgia, Miami, and Notre Dame are tied at the number 1 spot. Frankly, I don't see how there can be a 3-way tie for number 1. Okay, I know he keeps saying that Notre Dame is in the mix right now. I don't really think he's going to end up at Notre Dame. I think he's more likely to commit to Miami or Georgia, so I'm not going to get my hopes up there. But hey, crazier things have happened in recruiting. He definitely could still end up at Notre Dame. I'm just saying right now, I don't think he will. And there's enough evidence out there to make me think that there's a bunch of crystal balls that have him going to Miami too. And I think he's going to be taking his official visit to Miami either this weekend or next weekend. It's coming up. Okay, so even if they aren't able to get Scott, that's fine. Rushing is very, very important. If they can make a good impression with Bradley Shaw, that's going to go a really long way, because they have 2 linebackers committed right now in Brody Cajon and Teddy Rizek, but they're rated a little bit lower on the national recruiting rankings. And even though this isn't Bible, I know people sometimes get too caught up in the recruiting rankings, and they think that just because a player is in the top 300, it means he's going to be a bum. I would point out that Benjamin Morrison was not even in the top 350 in last year's class, and he was a freshman All-American. Stars do matter. Okay, there's enough evidence out there to back that up, and you look at the teams who are winning the most in college football. They're the teams that are recruiting the highest-rated guys in the class every single year. So Notre Dame certainly has some work to do, but this weekend is going to go a really long way in determining what this class ends up being. If they're able to do really well with not only Rushing, but Shaw as well and Miles, those are 3 positions of need: defensive end, linebacker, and safety. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Notre Dame staff this weekend. The good thing is there's going to be a ton of Notre Dame committed prospects in town, including 8 who are on defense. Right now, I'm seeing 10 of Notre Dame's committed prospects in the class of 2024 will be in town this weekend. And then the only 2 who are on offense are the 2 highest rated guys in the class. It's going to be CJ Carr and Cam Williams. And at this point, I just expect CJ Carr to be living in campus already, even though he's still a rising senior in high school. He is visiting to Notre Dame every weekend. Now, obviously, it's a little bit easier for him because he lives in Michigan, not that far of a drive, but he's coming in and he's making a big impression on all these other recruits who are visiting, who are not committed, and he's putting on his sales pitch the best he can, and that's really encouraging to see. I think Notre Dame fans are going to end up really, really liking Carr down the road, not only for the player that he's going to be, or at least the one that I think he's going to be, but also the type of person he is and how much he just loves the University of Notre Dame. He's going to be a very easy player to root for. And I can't wait to see him in the blue and gold, but obviously we've got some time before that happens. So going back to this class, I think really Notre Dame's in great shape overall. They're third right now. They're not going to stay there right now unless, of course, they get guys like Rushing and a few other guys, so like Kingston. Let me make sure I say this right. Kingston Valamuasa. He's a linebacker. He's coming next weekend, so not this upcoming weekend, the one after that, but I think that's going to be really important. Hopefully we hear from Paul Mankey soon, and we hear from Bronte Johnson, so we have a better idea of what Notre Dame's doing on the defensive side of the ball, because those commitments, if Notre Dame is able to get those over the line, that's going to adjust how they go about safety recruiting the rest of their way. They have already got Kennedy Urlacher on board, one safety, but they need more than that. And you and I both know that they probably need like at least 3, maybe even 4 safeties in this class. And this weekend could go along with that, with Johnson close to committing, Mankey close to committing, and then Oliver Miles visiting. It's a bunch of guys fighting for a few spots, and hopefully Notre Dame is able to get a commitment from the best players out of that group. But that's a lot of recruiting talk today. I'm going to have more recruiting talk later on in the week, too, as we gear up for another big recruiting weekend for the Irish. But I think I got to talk about the disrespect. So coming up in segment 3, Notre Dame quarterback Sam Hartman is being disrespected by a couple of national college football pundits, and I'll explain why it's complete and utter bullshit. All right, I know you guys have been waiting on the edge of your seat to hear my reaction to some of the disrespect that's been put out there regarding Sam Hartman, Notre Dame's new starting quarterback, especially from none other than Stu Mandel of The Athletic. And look, I don't normally like doing this. I don't like getting too riled up about different lists and different tiers, especially ones that are put out during the offseason in the month of June, because there's really just not a whole lot going on. And look, I'll admit, I'm a little bit more understanding to the national college football reporter or commentator because I work with them all the time at my day job, and I have been working with them for years. And I think that Notre Dame fans are a little bit sensitive, and I think that there's just a general misunderstanding about how people perceive not only Notre Dame, but literally every other college football team. Like, I'll always say that, like, if you're a diehard fan of a team, you probably know more about just, like, the players on the roster, more about their backgrounds. I wouldn't say that every diehard fan knows the schemes and all of that more than a national reporter, but the fact of the matter is, if you are a diehard fan, you're putting all of your attention into one specific team. You're going to know the roster up and down. You're going to know the 2D by heart. Whereas the national guy, he or she's got to know that for every single team in the Power 5 and probably even beyond that, especially the top teams in college football. So when these guys go out there and they make mistakes, especially when it's about Notre Dame, I don't usually get that upset unless it's very clearly meant to just generate a reaction. I think that's weak, and we all know the people out there who do it. And I don't think that there's a national media bias against Notre Dame because I've been in those rooms. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a major decision maker at any of the companies that I've worked at in the past, but there's not like a national media thing where all these people get together and say, hey, we need to bash on Notre Dame all the time. That's not how it works. As a matter of fact, you'd be surprised by how much these people want to talk about Notre Dame because they know that there's a lot of Notre Dame fans around the country who are going to want to tune in and want to hear about what they have to say regarding Notre Dame, whether it be good or bad. But I say all this to say there are certainly some individuals who work in the national media landscape who do have biases against Notre Dame, and you probably know most of them, okay? I've worked with a couple of them. I'm not going to name too many names in this podcast, but I got to name one. All right, and that's Stu Mandel from The Athletic. We all know his deal. We all know that he constantly just puts Notre Dame down. I think in 2021, the year that Notre Dame went 11-1, every single week he'd put out picks, and if you added them all up, he had Notre Dame going 7-5 or something like that, and just refused to accept the fact that, hey, maybe Notre Dame might be good. Maybe they figured it out with Jack Cohn under center. But he's been doing this for years, and it started again. I got a couple of texts from some friends about this, and I saw it. Trust me. Me and some friends in some group chats, we had our fun with this, looking at the quarterback tiers. And basically, Stuart Mandel and Bruce Feldman. Bruce Feldman, I love. I think he's one of the best in the business, and he's a Fox guy. Shout out. He's really, really smart. He is not doing this to generate engagement or anything like that. That's not his thing at all. He's very well respected in the industry, and for good reason. He's very dialed into this stuff. And I don't think he agreed with Stu Mandel on his tiers list. But basically, these guys put out their quarterback tiers list. Again, list season, we got jobs to do. We got to generate content when there's not much content going on. I get it, all right? But they put Sam Hartman behind some really questionable names among who is the best quarterbacks in college football. So let's just go through it, okay? They did 4 tiers they did more than 4 tiers, but Sam Hartman was in the 4th tier of college quarterbacks in the NCAA, according to Stu Mandel. In tier 1, it was Caleb Williams. I think that observation is astute. As much as it pains me to say, Caleb Williams is something special, man, and he is by far and away the best quarterback in college football. I know that some NFL teams are looking at him and Drake May. Dude, come on. We all watched Caleb Williams last year. He's really good. He might annoy the hell out of me, might annoy the hell out of you, but he's an awesome college football quarterback, and he might be one of the best that I've ever seen. Again, I'm literally nauseous saying that, but I have to get it out. In tier 2, they've got Drake May and Michael Penix Jr. Don't really have a ton of qualms with that either. I think that's pretty fair. I think Penix Jr., what he did last season at Washington was really, really impressive. And then we get to tier 3. And now I've got some questions. The first name they mentioned is Jane Daniels at LSU. Jane Daniels is an absolutely awesome runner. I think he had 885 rushing yards last season for the Tigers. He did. He might not be the best quarterback on his own team. What Nussmeier did in the SEC championship coming in for an injured Jaden Daniels was really impressive. And there's a lot of people around that LSU program who think that Nussmeier is actually the more talented all-around quarterback. He's got an absolute cannon of an arm. So I don't know about that Jaden Daniels pick. I really don't know about Frank Harris at UTSA. I think Frank Harris has done really well for them. He threw for over 4,000 yards last year, and UTSA is a solid program. But, dude, are you serious? You think college coaches would rather have Frank Harris over Sam Hartman? But, again, I'm not going to get too hot and bothered right now. Let's go through the full list. KJ Jefferson, I think he's an underrated quarterback. He does a lot through the air and on the ground. I don't hate him being in tier 3. Grayson McCall at Coastal Carolina. I mean, yeah, he put up good numbers. He also played for Coastal Carolina. What were the quality of opponents that they were playing? Jamie Chadwell, also really smart offensive mind. I'd like to think that the system certainly favored McCall, but he's a good player. I don't think he's better than Sam Hartman. J.J. McCarthy led Michigan to a playoff last year, threw 2 pick sixes in the college football playoff semifinal game. That's the bad, but he also shredded Ohio State, so I can't mention one without the other. Tier 3 probably makes sense for him. He'll probably be really good this season, but he has one of the best offensive lines in the country blocking for him, and then literally the best running back duo in college football. How much of his success is a product of the offense? I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see this year once he has a little bit more responsibility. Bo Nix, I thought he sucked forever, but he looked really good at Oregon. We'll see if he continues that this year. Michael Pratt is a name that Notre Dame fans probably know. He's the quarterback at Tulane. He beat Caleb Williams, mind you, in that New Year's 6 game. I still think he's a good player, but having him above Sam Hartman is a little bit questionable. And then Devin Leary, the quarterback for Kentucky, the NC State transfer, they have him as a higher-rated quarterback than Sam Hartman. And now that gets us to tier 4, and that's where Sam Hartman is. Look, I get it. I'm not saying that Sam Hartman is perfect, but there is not a single player in all of college football who has thrown for more yards or more touchdowns than Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman ranks 19th all-time in passing yards thrown, okay? 19th. He's 18th in passing touchdowns. He's the ACC career leader in passing touchdowns thrown. He's still got one more season left. Now, granted, it's a 6th year, so when you look at his final numbers, obviously they're going to be a little bit more skewed because he played college football, but still, he hasn't even played that season yet. He's played 5 years, or he's been the starter for 4 years, but still, what he has accomplished at the college level is more than most of these guys. Now, he's not obviously as good as Caleb Williams or Drake May, but what he's done, they're going to put Devin Leary in front of him, Frank Harris. It's insane to me that they would think that those guys are more talented quarterbacks than Sam Hartman, especially considering what he's done at the college level. And look, I understand that he's thrown some picks. He's thrown 26 picks combined over the past 2 seasons. He was also 16th in the country in yards per attempt last season. He likes to throw the ball downfield a lot, and that is going to lead to interceptions sometimes. It's also going to happen when you're playing at Wake Forest and you're down a lot, okay, because your defense is terrible and you're forced to throw to have any shot of winning. You're going to have to make aggressive passes on 3rd and long to try to keep your team in it. So look, I'm not making excuses for all of his interceptions, but I do think some of them are certainly a byproduct of his surroundings. And what this tells me, honestly, is that Sam Hartman might have more to prove than any other college football player in the country right now. That seems like a stretch, but if you consider the circumstances, he's going from Wake Forest, a team who is a pretty quality team in the ACC, who never really had a chance at winning the conference championship, to a team at Notre Dame who's aspiring to make the college football playoff this season and will be on the biggest stage week in and week out. Notre Dame has some absolutely massive games compared to the rest of college football, like that game against USC, Ohio State, Clemson. All of those games are going to be at the center of the college football universe, and Sam Hartman is going to be running the show for Notre Dame. So not only is he trying to impress NFL scouts this season, I think that despite being one of, if not the most accomplished quarterback in all of college football this season, he's still being doubted severely by people who cover the sport. I haven't even mentioned David Hale, who's a writer for ESPN, and he put Sam Hartman even lower in like the tier 4A with the quarterback of Duke. Like, it's insane to me what some of these guys are saying about Sam Hartman. And again, not saying he's perfect, but he's a lot better than what some of these people are saying. And I know that it's June, and maybe these guys are winning because I'm talking about them on this podcast, and I promise I won't keep this up, but I felt like I needed to address this level of just stupidity, honestly. Like, I don't understand how you could watch football, you could watch Sam Hartman play for as long as he has, and not think he's more talented than most of these guys on this list. So I'm really excited to see what Sam Hartman does for Notre Dame this year, not only because I think he elevates the Notre Dame ceiling, I think that this guy's going to play with a chip on his shoulder, unlike anything we've seen at Notre Dame in some time. Like, Notre Dame has had some good quarterbacks. They had guys like Ian Book, but no one came into this situation. Like, Hartman's situation is so unprecedented compared to every other quarterback we've seen at Notre Dame, really, during my entire lifetime, because he's got 1 year. He's got one shot to prove that he's this caliber of a quarterback, that he can play in the NFL, that he can be a truly elite college-level player, and then he can win on the biggest stages in the sport. And look, it's June. We don't have as much to talk about right now, but just talking about this, doing this segment right now is getting me so amped up for the season and to watch Sam Hartman play, because I think he's going to have a really special year, and I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong in the process. But that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Irish. Thanks again for making this your first listen of the day. For the everydayers out there, I've got some exciting stuff in the works that I'm eager to share with you guys soon. Hopefully that'll be available in the coming days and weeks, so be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, please subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Irish, on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod, and my personal Twitter account at Tyler Wojciak. That's at Tyler, Wojciak. I'll see you guys tomorrow.